trapped in ice with a monster. Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to the coldest, most isolated place on Earth. A place where your breath freezes midair and the silence feels too thick to break. But tonight, it's not the cold that kills, it's what's hiding in your friend's face. You probably won't survive, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Also, let me know your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where our late night crew is watching from. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. We were stuck at an Antarctic research station. You'd think the endless snow, the howling wind, and the 60 below temperatures would be enough to deal with. But no, the real nightmare began when something arrived, or rather, when we found it. At first, we thought it was just debris, leftover wreckage from some old expedition buried under the ice, until the Norwegians started acting weird, shooting at dogs, screaming in a language none of us spoke, desperate, terrified. One of them had a grenade. He dropped it, and that's when everything began to fall apart. Old saying from a frost-hardened trapper I once met. You don't freeze to death in Antarctica, you just stop being alive. But we weren't dealing with frostbite this time. We were dealing with a thing. It started with the dog. The poor animal just stood there, silent, too silent, staring at the wall like it was waiting for something. No barking, no wagging tail, just watching. We locked it in the kennel with the others. Big mistake. What we saw next didn't belong on Earth. The dog split open like rotten fruit. Tendrils shot out like whips. Flesh restructured. Eyes popped where no eyes should be. Jaws bloomed from its sides like petals from a nightmare flower. And then it started becoming the other dogs. Fur rippled, bones cracked. Screaming, human screaming, came out of its throat. We burned it, but we were already too late. Funny fact to lighten the mood. Penguins mate for life and recognize each other by their call. Romantic, right? Well, down here, the only thing calling your name might be pretending to be you. After that night, we all changed, not because we were infected, but because we realized anyone could be. Every cough, every glance, every twitch of the eye or hesitation in speech became suspicious. You want to know how fast trust dies? About as fast as a flamethrower clears a room. We searched the Norwegian camp, burned out buildings, frozen corpses, claw marks in the walls. And then we found the body. It was wrong, half human, half something else, like it tried to be a person but forgot which way elbows bend. The face was almost right, but not quite. Like a bad copy of someone you used to love. It didn't bleed red, it hissed, and still moved. Academic debate rages on about the nature of the thing. Is it sentient? Does it feel? Or is it simply mimicking emotion, just enough to get close before it feeds? All I know is, when it looks at you, it already knows what your blood tastes like. We tried blood tests, fire, isolation, but none of it stopped the doubt. Who was clean? Who was copy? We were trapped in a box of snow with something that could become anyone. No backup, no help, just fear. And the storm outside, it never ended. Like the planet itself didn't want us to leave an alien with no name or face. The first time we called it the thing, it was a joke. Someone said, that thing out there, and it stuck. No one wanted to give it a name, because if you can name something, you start to understand it. But this thing, you don't understand it, you survive it. The creature we were dealing with wasn't an alien in the traditional sci-fi sense. It wasn't here to make contact, or study us, or even destroy us in some dramatic explosion. It was simply here, and being here meant it was already spreading. No arrival, no sound, no motive, just infection. The thing doesn't roar, it doesn't explain itself, it becomes. And the worst part, it does it better than you. You want to know what horror tastes like? It's realizing the person across the table from you, someone you've shared meals and memories with, might already be gone. Might just be a collection of cells waiting for the right moment to split open and multiply. Here's something odd. Cuttlefish can mimic not just color and texture, but behavior patterns of predators to avoid being eaten. The thing makes cuttlefish look like amateurs. It doesn't just look like you. It remembers your jokes. It knows how you hold your mug. It breathes at the right rhythm. It mirrors trust. And trust, in a place like Antarctica, is oxygen. When that's gone, you suffocate, even indoors. We tried watching each other. Always in pairs, sleep in shifts, always someone awake. But it didn't help, because even the person keeping watch might already be it. You can't guard the door when the door's already open inside. There's this theory floating around in the more paranoid corners of biology, that somewhere in the universe, life evolved not toward stability, but toward assimilation, that it learned how to wear other life forms. The thing fits that theory better than any life form we've ever encountered. We went back to the Norwegian logs. Photos, tapes, translations. And then we saw it, the crash site. Buried under the ice was a ship. Not huge, just large enough. The edges were smooth, rounded like no human design. Whatever piloted it, gone, burned, maybe, killed by its own passenger. Because the thing didn't build ships. It hitchhiked, old Inuit tale. If you hear a stranger calling your name in the snow, don't answer. It isn't someone you know. It's the wind, trying to remember your voice. In our case, it wasn't the wind. It was Blair. Blair had been quiet for hours. Then, suddenly, helpful, too helpful, volunteering to check systems, fixing what wasn't broken. He smiled wrong. That's the moment I knew. He wasn't trying to escape with us. He was trying to make sure no one left. The thing doesn't want glory or conquest. It doesn't care about survival the way we do. It just continues. Like mold in a damp corner. Like rot in wood. It keeps going, because that's all it knows. And as far as we could tell, it had been doing that for a long time. The logs dated back nearly 100,000 years. Buried deep beneath layers of permafrost. Which meant one thing. We weren't the first. And we wouldn't be the last. Here's a quirky Earth fact. Tardigrades can survive in space. They dry out, go dormant, and just wait. That's exactly what the thing did. Frozen in ice, waiting for a moment. Then the drill touched the wrong spot. Then the generator hummed. And it woke up. No language. No goal. Just adaptation. Every cell a soldier. Every copy a weapon. Every friend a coin flip. And the scariest part? It doesn't know it's lying. Because it thinks it is you a long sleep beneath the ice. When we realized the thing wasn't something new, but something ancient, our fear turned into something colder than the storm outside. It had been here before us. Long before us. And we were never supposed to wake it up. We found the site buried under centuries of compacted ice. The ship itself looked tired, like it had crashed from some desperate height and never planned to land. Half fused into the glacier, scorched panels, hull breaches sealed with frostbite. Inside, there were no controls, no chairs, no answers, just bones, twisted, blackened, and wrong. And the ice beneath it, hollow. That's where they dug it up. That's where they broke the seal. That's when they gave it a second chance. Academic speculation suggests the thing wasn't the pilot of that ship. It was cargo. A biological weapon, or worse, a stowaway, something that infected the crew, caused the crash, and simply waited, frozen solid in the perfect prison, Antarctica. No heat, no light, no life, just sleep, for maybe 100,000 years. There's something unsettling about that idea. That we didn't just find an alien life form. We found a survivor, a relic from a forgotten war, a mistake sealed in a coffin of snow, and we melted the lock. Old mountain guide saying, there's wisdom in not knowing what's beneath your feet. We should have listened. The thing's ability to go dormant was terrifying. It didn't die in the cold. It paused. Its cells slowed to a crawl, conserving energy, holding memory. Every cell retained the blueprint, the copy, the strategy. It was like if you froze a wolf and thawed it 1,000 years later, and it still remembered how to hunt. Except this wasn't a wolf. This was everything it had ever eaten. The Norwegian team didn't stand a chance. They melted the ice, saw the form inside, thought it was fossilized. It wasn't. It was watching. Even when dormant, its cells remained active, just not visible. Maybe they stirred the surface. Maybe they cracked a claw loose. Maybe it smelled the heat on their hands. Whatever the trigger, it was enough. And then it began again. Here's a weird fact. Certain frogs can survive being frozen solid. Their hearts stop, their blood turns to slush. When thawed, they resume life like nothing happened. The thing operates the same way. But when it resumes, something else does too. We found what was left of the Norwegian lab. Charred remains, melted walls, a body fused to the ceiling. Mid-transformation, half man, half spider thing, mouth wide in eternal panic. They'd tried fire, same as us. They'd almost succeeded. but they hadn't destroyed everything. That's the danger of the thing. You don't need the whole monster to die. Just a cell, just a drop, just a speck of breath you didn't notice. The longer we stayed, the more we realized we weren't in control. The thing didn't just kill. It replaced. It didn't leave corpses. It left doubt. And here's the most terrifying part. The original form of the thing, its true shape, was still unknown. We never saw it. No one has. Maybe even it doesn't remember anymore. Because it's been too many things. Too many lives. Too many shapes. Maybe now it's just echoes. All fighting for space inside one body. There was a moment, out by the snowcat garage, when we saw it flee. It wasn't in full form. It was confused, mid-shift, flailing limbs, twisted bones, eyes in the wrong places. Like it couldn't decide who to be. And it ran, like it remembered fear. That scared me more than anything. Because if it's afraid, what the hell could make it run? The storm didn't let up. The radio was static. And the thing was inside the base. Somewhere, sleeping, waking, waiting the power of perfect imitation. You don't realize how much you rely on routine until it starts betraying you. Someone pours their coffee the wrong way. Someone forgets your nickname. Someone blinks, offbeat. And suddenly, you're wondering if you're eating breakfast with a friend, or with something that killed your friend and just decided to keep wearing his face. That was the brilliance of the thing. It didn't look like us. It was us, down to the scars, the jokes, the private memories, everything stored, everything mimicked. When it took you, it didn't just borrow your skin, it swallowed your story. And then walked right into the room like nothing happened. They say octopuses can solve mazes and open jars. Intelligent, curious, adaptable. Now imagine if an octopus could also become you. Think like you, talk like you, and no one could tell. The thing made octopuses look like stone. We started testing blood. Heat made it react. That was our first real clue. The cells weren't passive, they were alive. Even when separated, each drop was its own entity, ready to defend itself, to lash out. Your best friend could be 99% human, and 1% not. And that 1% was enough to kill you. Here's an old paratrooper's truth. You never land where you think you will. Same with infection. It never spreads the way you expect. One handshake, one shared utensil, one breath in the wrong room. The thing didn't charge into battle. It walked into our kitchen. We lost Gary first. He was calm, reasonable, a good guy. Then he wasn't. The transformation started small, just a twitch in his hand. He said it was cold. Said he was fine. The hand split open before the sentence finished. It's funny in a horrible way. The thing never had to be strong. Just close enough. Close enough to make us hesitate. And in a place like Antarctica, hesitation is death. Some of us tried staying awake for days. Didn't work. The brain starts hallucinating. Logic breaks down. I watched two of my teammates accuse each other over a misplaced spoon. A spoon. We laughed. Then we stopped laughing. Because we realized one of them hadn't blinked in 2 minutes. Academic theory time. Some believe the thing isn't a single organism at all, but a distributed intelligence, a network of self-aware cells operating under a shared goal. No central brain, no heart, just purpose. And that purpose is survival. The fear wasn't just that someone was infected. It was the creeping realization that maybe you were. Maybe while you slept. Maybe from the air. Maybe from that cut on your finger. And what if you didn't know? What if the thing made you forget? That's the trap. You can't just fight it. You can't even trust yourself. There's a quirky thought. If you woke up tomorrow and everyone else had been replaced, but they all believed they were still themselves, who's the monster? The thing doesn't need to destroy you. It just needs to make you question what you're looking at. That's how it wins. Not by brute force, but by making you light the match yourself. We built a fire pit out back. We burned what was left of Gary. It wasn't much, and maybe that was the point. Maybe less was safer. I remember one of the dogs wouldn't go near Bennings. Just stood there, teeth bared, low growl. Bennings told us to ignore it. He said he'd feed the dog later. But that night, the dog went missing. And Bennings, he didn't blink all day. That was when I started sleeping with a flare in my hand. Not a gun, a flare. Because bullets don't matter. Not when the monster looks like someone who knows your secret's the true shape of fear. It wasn't the thing's strength that terrified us. Not the way it could twist a man inside out. Not the sudden violence. It was the way it didn't care what shape it took, only that it worked. And when it no longer worked, it melted, reformed, became something else. We kept trying to find its original form, like somehow understanding what it was would help us stop it. But the truth is, the thing never had a form. It was never born one way. It became what it needed to survive. And that meant it could become anything. Anything it touched, anything it consumed. And once it did, the original was gone, cell by cell, molecule by molecule. There's a theory in speculative biology called adaptive convergence. It's the idea that life on different planets might evolve similar features because the laws of physics and biology push them toward the same solutions. The thing is the antithesis of that. It doesn't converge, it absorbs. When it was exposed, when fire or fear forced it to drop the mask, it didn't roar or threaten. It simply transformed, arms bent backward, faces split open, bones elongated into spears, mouths retracted into skulls, and skin turned into tools. Sometimes it looked like nothing we'd ever seen. Sometimes it looked like everything we feared. There's an old tale from Siberia about a creature that takes your shadow first. Then it waits for you to follow. That's what the thing did. It took the outline, then filled in the rest. I watched one transformation from across the room. Palmer was fine, making jokes, laughing, lighting a cigarette. Then his face slid, like his skin had forgotten how to grip the muscle beneath. The next second, his jaw dropped open, too far, too wide, and something else came out. A mouth inside a mouth. Tentacles where teeth should be. His eyes blinked sideways and then split. We torched him before he could fully stand. But what burned wasn't just Palmer. It was a dozen other things trying to crawl out through his skin. Here's something weird. Certain jellyfish can revert to a juvenile state after maturity, essentially resetting their lifespan. The thing does the same, but in reverse. It takes one body, one form, and expands it, fuses it, makes something new, not reborn, reimagined. When we forced it into the open, the thing didn't fight back the way animals do. It lashed out with strategy. A man's torso opened into a jaw. A disembodied head sprouted spider legs and tried to crawl away. That one stayed with me the longest, because that head still looked like my friend. It had eyes, it had a mouth, and it screamed. And yet, in all its horror, there was logic to it. The thing always attacked fast, always aimed for assimilation, unless it was cornered. Then it broke the rules. Then it showed everything. One of the crew, Mac, said it best. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation, and it'll fight if it has to. But it's smart, real smart. And smart things, they only show their teeth when they've run out of moves. We burned it, again, and again. But even as it died, if it died, it never stopped changing. One last twist, one final shudder, like it was trying to evolve faster than the fire could finish the job. And maybe, it almost did. There's a quirky myth from West Africa, about a creature that becomes whatever you fear most. But only if you see it. If you look away, it stays harmless. If you stare too long, it knows you. That's how I felt with the thing. It didn't just become a monster. It became your monster. We asked ourselves why it didn't just attack all at once. Why the secrecy? Why the mimicry? Because brute force is messy. Mimicry divides people. It infects through paranoia, disarms with confusion. Why roar when you can whisper in a friend's voice? The true shape of fear isn't fangs or claws. It's the sound of someone you trust knocking on your door, and wondering, before you answer, if their still human why fire is the only salvation. There was a moment I'll never forget. A single match, trembling between two fingers, the flame barely alive against the freezing air of the outpost. That match meant everything, because we had finally understood the truth. Fire wasn't just a weapon. It was the only thing the thing couldn't outthink. Guns didn't work. You could shoot off its limbs, blast holes through its chest, shred it with metal, but it just kept moving. The pieces didn't die. They split off, scuttled away, reformed, fought back. You weren't killing it. You were multiplying it. There's an old Arctic ranger saying, if the cold doesn't stop it, fire will remind it why it should. We started carrying flamethrowers like people carry pocket knives. No one trusted bullets anymore. Fire became our language, a way to say, I don't trust you, but I care enough to make sure you burn if I have to. Romantic, I know. Academic consensus. when it comes to cellular assimilation at this scale, suggests that only complete tissue destruction at the molecular level could prevent replication. Translation: you can't just hurt the thing, you have to erase it. The way it reacted to flame was different. It shrieked, loud, panicked. Other wounds made it shift or fight back. But fire made it scream. That was when we knew. Beneath all its forms and faces, all the memory and mimicry, it could feel pain. It didn't expect that. One time, we burned a sample in a petri dish, just a droplet of blood. It tried to run, not metaphorically, not dramatically. The blood itself leapt. It hissed, sizzled, fled from the heat. That was the moment the room stopped breathing. Because if a single drop has instinct, how do you fight something made of millions? We set up tests, each of us tied down. One by one, we cut fingers, pulled blood, applied heat. Every scream, every flare of orange light, came with a prayer that the next person wouldn't move wrong. Because if they did, flamethrower, no hesitation. That was the rule, even if it was your bunkmate, even if it was your best friend, especially if it was you. Here's a bizarre little known fact. In some forest ecosystems, certain pine cones can only release their seeds after a fire. They need the destruction to make life possible. That's what we were hoping for. That somehow, fire would cleanse the outpost, reset everything. But fire doesn't ask questions. It just burns. The thing didn't attack fire outright. It feared it, avoided it, like it remembered heat in a way we couldn't understand. Maybe wherever it came from, whatever world it crawled out of, fire meant extinction. Or maybe it's just the first thing that ever hurt it. We burned the bodies. All of them, even the ones we weren't sure about. No burial, no eulogies, just kerosene and flame and the long, bitter silence that followed. Because down there, you don't get graves, you get guarantees. The radio was dead, the generator was dying, and the cold, well, the cold was finally catching up. But fire still worked. That little voice in the back of your head, the one that tells you not to torture human shape. You learn to ignore it. Because with the thing, hesitation is how it wins. Old war pilot once told me, your last weapon should be the one you trust the most. Down there, that was flame, pure, unforgiving, and final. We knew the thing couldn't copy metal, fillings, screws, implants. That gave us another test. But even then, it wasn't enough. Because the thing didn't need your whole body, just enough to act like you. And sometimes, that was worse than a full copy. Because you still saw part of the person you remembered. And you still had to burn them. So we made fire our language. And eventually, our law. You run, you burn, you scream, you might be okay. You hesitate, too late. By the end, we didn't trust our own shadows. But we trusted fire. And that saved us. For a little while the enemy within the team. You ever look around a room full of people and suddenly realize you don't know a single one of them anymore? That's what the thing does to you. Not with claws, not with screams, with doubt. There were only a few of us left by then. Sleep deprived, frantic, whispering to ourselves, flinching when someone said our name. Because what if they didn't say it right? What if they were just wearing that voice? We stopped using each other's names. Started calling each other you and hey. Because a name implies familiarity. And by that point, familiarity had become a weapon. One of the guys, Clark, started avoiding eye contact. He didn't talk much, just stared out at the snow like it was going to answer him. So naturally, we thought he was infected. Turns out, he was just scared. But scared and infected look the same when trust is gone. And that's the trick. The thing doesn't always need to copy you. It just needs you to stop trusting each other. And then it wins without ever moving. There's a phrase I read in an old sociology journal. Paranoia is a virus with no cure, just carriers. We all became carriers. I remember Fuchs trying to make a new test. Something more accurate than the blood trick. He kept his notes hidden, kept himself locked away, and one day, he was gone. We found him in the snow, burned to ash, self-immolated. He'd rather die than let it take him. And somehow, that made perfect sense. Quirky historical side note. In ancient Japan, castle guards used to carry tiny bells on their armor, not for alerting enemies, but so their comrades could always hear them coming. We started doing something similar. Small routines, a code word, a question only the real person would know how to answer. It helped, until it didn't, because the thing learns, it listens, and it doesn't forget. We caught Windows sitting alone in the comms room. staring at a turned-off screen. He said he was trying to reach someone. Anyone. His voice was calm, too calm, like someone trying not to move wrong. That was enough for Mac. Flamethrower came up, one spark, one flash, just in case. But Windows flinched, reacted, and suddenly, we weren't so sure anymore. That's what this monster does. It breaks your ability to wait, to weigh, to hesitate, and eventually, you don't trust the right people at the wrong moment, and they die. Or you don't trust yourself, and you die. Old myth from the Arctic tribes. They say there's a creature that can only be killed if everyone agrees who the monster is. But if even one person protects it, it lives forever. The thing is exactly that. All it needs is one vote of doubt. We made rules. No one goes alone. No one eats together. No one touches anyone. Always burn the body. And when in doubt, fire first. It didn't feel like survival. It felt like punishment. But the only alternative was extinction. Academic debate still rages about whether the thing is truly evil. But evil doesn't need intent. It just needs a result. And the result was a room full of men too afraid to blink in unison. We tried leaving notes for ourselves. Recordings. I am me, loops on cassette tapes. But every time I hit play, I thought, what if I already changed? And just haven't figured it out yet? What if this voice isn't mine anymore? There's a scene that keeps playing in my head. I'm looking at Childs through the frosted glass of the mess hall window. He's got a flare in one hand, the bottle in the other, just like me, and neither of us says a word. Because we both know, only one of us might be real. Or maybe neither. Or maybe that doesn't matter anymore, surviving what you can't see. In the end, it wasn't about winning. It was about making sure the thing didn't win. And if that meant freezing to death next to someone who might be human, or might not, well, at least the snow is honest. It doesn't pretend to be your friend. The generator was dead, the radio silent, the lights flickered like they were whispering a secret none of us wanted to hear. The base was dying, and we decided we'd die with it. But we weren't going to let it leave. Mac and I split up, set thermite charges in every corridor, every room. We didn't say much. Words didn't mean anything anymore. At that point, actions were the only thing we had left. He looked at me once, lit a flare, and nodded. I didn't nod back, just lit mine too. Funny thing about cold, it doesn't kill you fast. It just makes you sleepy. It tricks you into thinking you'll wake up somewhere warm. But I wasn't tired. I was ready. Because even though the fire would go out, the ice would come back. And the thing couldn't hide from the cold forever. Maybe that was the final plan. Not to beat it, but to trap it again. Here's a chilling biological detail. Certain bacteria can survive in space. Not just in cold, but in vacuum. They go dormant, waiting centuries. The thing might be the same. But even if it wakes up again, maybe next time, someone will know better. Maybe they'll read our notes. Hear the screams buried in the snow. And maybe they'll burn it before it learns to smile again. In those last moments, I sat across from Childs. Or whoever was wearing him. We didn't argue. We didn't run. We just passed the bottle back and forth. Because when you're not sure if the person next to you is a monster, but you're both too cold to care, that's the closest you'll ever get to peace. He said, if we got any surprises for each other, I don't think we're in much shape to do anything about it. I nodded, not because I trusted him, but because trust didn't matter anymore. And so we waited. For the storm, for the sleep, for the silence. Maybe the fire would last long enough. Maybe it wouldn't, but at least, when the thing came looking for warmth, all it would find was ashes. I like to think that if someone finds this place someday, they'll understand that this wasn't about saving ourselves. It was about saving everyone else. Even if they never know our names. Even if all they find is a pile of snow, a bottle of whiskey, and two corpses that look a little too still. Because in the end, the thing isn't just an alien. It's not even just a monster. It's a mirror, one that shows us what we're willing to do. To survive in the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, we uncovered more than ice. We woke something up. The thing isn't a creature. It's an idea, a virus made of fear. A perfect imitation that doesn't just wear your face, it memorizes your memories. Your habits, your soul, and then it becomes you. The horror isn't in the blood. It's in the doubt, in looking at your best friend and wondering if they're still who they were, or if they've already been replaced. Fire became our last hope. The only tool that made it scream. Bullets, useless. Knives, worse. Every piece you cut off becomes something new. It doesn't die, it divides. As our numbers fell, so did our trust. We stopped calling each other by name. We stopped sleeping. We stopped hoping. The thing didn't need to kill us all. It just needed us to turn on each other. In the final moments, there was no grand escape. No dramatic survival. Just two men, maybe men, sitting in the cold, waiting to freeze. Too tired to kill, too unsure to talk. And maybe that was the only way to win. To burn everything. To leave nothing. To make sure the monster dies in the same silence it lived in. Because the thing doesn't roar. It whispers. And the moment you stop listening carefully, it becomes you.